You're listening to DraftKings Network.
Feeling good about your fantasy draft picks, but not sure what to eat? Make it easy on yourself. Order in on DoorDash. Now you can root for your squad while your food and drinks are on the way. Yes, that means burgers, chips, dips, soda, pizza, wings, and so much more, delivered straight to your door.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we had one of our schools, Florida State, go undefeated this year and win the conference championship. And they earned a spot in the college football playoffs. And they were excluded from that, and I think was something that is very, very controversial. But what we decided to do, we're setting aside $1 million for any litigation expenses that may become as a result of this really, really poor decision by the college football playoffs.
Happy Friday. Welcome to Because Miami. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Roy.
This f***ing guy.
That's a cart. With his
sports
priorities in the right place here, dedicating $1 million of the budget. I mean, nobody can afford health care. Nobody can afford property insurance. Nobody can afford groceries. We are the absolute inflation capital of the country, and yet this is what we're going to be dedicating $1 million of our budget to. Roy, what do you think? Did FSU get screwed here?
Yes, but he doesn't even know what conference they play in, so he doesn't even know what he's talking
I don't know that FSU plays in that conference anymore, Roy.
No, they went out.
I think everybody's going to start fleeing that conference, but it reminds me a little bit of the 2000 Miami Hurricanes.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely.
Lost one game that year,
beat FSU.
They beat FSU. They beat the number 1 and number 2 ranking teams. They got screwed out of not just the championship game, but it was an Orange Bowl, you may recall, where FSU went on to play Oklahoma and got whooped. And I don't think there's any doubt that Miami would have beat Oklahoma at the Orange Bowl in January of 2001.
They would have kicked the Boomer Sooner ass. I'm telling you that right now.
And they would have won 3 in a row.
Yes.
2000, 2001, and 2002, which they also should have done in 86, 87, and 88, I would argue. But I don't know. I think FSU had a cupcake schedule this year, and so there's other things to take into consideration at playoff time than just an undefeated record, no? In the ACC, no less.
Well, win your games, man. You got to win your games. You don't want any upsets.
Well, they did win their games.
Exactly. They won all their games.
So what do they deserve?
Apparently nothing.
Sports. And speaking of legislative priorities here in the great free state of Florida, breaking news this week that Florida now ranks 46th in the nation for SAT scores, down another 17 points for an average of 966, trailing South Carolina, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, and even Washington, D.C., while Magatov.
We did it.
Yes. All this while state leaders, so-called education leaders, are focusing on pronouns and book bans and trolling concerned educators and students and parents on social media. And most importantly, we cannot forget the most important priority of all, trans athletes.
She was probably one of the favorites on the team that everyone loved. Like, everyone got along with her.
Jordan Campbell is the captain of the girls' volleyball team at Monarch High School. Campbell says she has played alongside the transgender athlete at the center of the recent controversy that led to the removal of the school principal and other administrators on campus.
Their main argument is about fairness and equalness in sports, but how about fairness among humans, just us as humans? Because right now, she's not being treated like a human. She's not being treated like she's worth anything to anyone. The things that people have to say in school and in social media and comments is just beyond disgusting. It truly is disgusting. And she's a human. She deserves to be treated like one. How about we bring fairness into that?
Dozens of students walked out of class at lunchtime for a second day in a row to show their support for the transgender athlete who was born male and transitioned to female at age 10. A complaint arose this month about the transgender girl playing girls volleyball, which would violate newer state law.
Jennifer Solomon is the Parents and Families Support Manager for Equality Florida, an LGBTQ plus rights organization here in the state of Florida. Jennifer, thank you for being here. First and foremost, you have a relationship with this family, with this young woman, her parents. How disruptive has this been for them? And how disruptive is this for the school itself that now on the eve of midterms has seen their principal, their assistant principal, and multiple staff members removed from the school?
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate you bring light to some of these terrible laws that are affecting all our kids. The family is hurting, as are all the families in the school. This is honestly any parent's worst nightmare. Their daughter, who is a straight A student, well-adjusted, involved in different variety of things at school, has now had her life upended. And so they are obviously really, trying to support their child, but seeing the outpour of support for her is wonderful, but seeing how these laws actually do affect real kids. And this is a real child that was harmed.
Dr. Peter Licata, the superintendent of Broward County Public Schools, relatively new on the job, is kind of being, out of the frying pan into the fire here with this scandal. I'm not really sure what exactly the scandal is. One of the people who was suspended, Dr. Licata said that they are interested in protecting all students. And I have to imagine that he means well, but how is this protecting all students? Again, not just the student involved here, the trans student from the volleyball team, but the students at this school who've clearly for multiple days in a row been walking out of classrooms. I mean, it seems highly disruptive.
Well, it is. And I think that this isn't one specific incident, but what it's shedding light on the problems that we have here in this state. We are banning principals from school. We are banning books from libraries. We are banning teachers from being able to be supportive of all their students. So I think that this really is just shedding a light on issues that we have. We have a governor that has unleashed a mob specifically on this family, but on all LGBTQ families in this state. I am a lifelong Floridian. I chose to raise my 4 kids in this state. And I will tell you, it is becoming harder and harder for us to live here. We are literally drowning in hate and discrimination in this state under this administration.
Yeah, I mean, we have a government that is bullying and punching down at minorities who have absolutely no means by which to protect themselves. And let's talk about that for a moment. What is the end game here? Because it doesn't seem to be to create a safer environment. It doesn't seem to be to improve the quality of the public school education here in the state of Florida. And it's clearly not. We see what's happening with SAT scores. We see what's happening with the number of vacancies among teachers in the public school system and support staff. And now you have a coach of this volleyball team who says he didn't even know that this girl was a trans student. He said, we were just playing volleyball. Like, what are we doing here? What is this all about? What is the ulterior motive here?
So the end game is that they're trying to dismantle public education, and they're doing it in so many different ways. This is another example. Our kids just want to be kids. All kids should have the opportunity to play on a sports team, to learn the leadership skills that you learn by participating. Nobody was being harmed. There was not an issue. And that's really the bottom line, Billy, is trans kids aren't hurting anyone. Families like ours just want to raise our kids to be successful human beings in this world. And for some reason, the Florida legislature and our governor seems to think that this is the top issue, that this is the biggest threat to Floridians. And like you said, it clearly isn't working. There are teachers that are leaving the profession in droves because they're scared that they are going to be sued or they're going to be losing their job for doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, being there for our children. And I think it's a shame. And I wish more people would stand up and speak out, because I will tell you, parental rights means parental rights for all, not just for some. And families like mine, as you said, I work with Equality Florida. We have a program, Parenting with Pride. I have almost 2,000 families that have said, help us make sure that our kids are safe in school, that our kids are safe in the community, that they can receive medical care. Parents are getting really tired of bullies like DeSantis picking on our kids and using them as political pawns. And that is what's going on in this state.
And I want to talk about the hypocrisy here that I have to hear from Miami, Hialeah, former state senator, now education commissioner appointed by Ron DeSantis, Manny Diaz. Not that Manny Diaz, Roy. A different Manny Diaz.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And this Manny Diaz, though.
He's not at Penn State right now.
This man, no, he is. But he'd fit in just fine at Penn State because this is a guy who, when he was a teacher back at Hialeah Miami Lakes, was accused of being a pervert, who would flirt inappropriately with teenage girls, who would talk about rolling on ecstasy, who would smoke pot allegedly in the teacher parking lot on campus, who would talk to the students about going to parties at nightclubs and rolling. He was like the quote unquote like cool young teacher. And now this guy is talking about teachers grooming students who just want to be themselves, who just want to be identified by the name and the gender in which they identify with, and talk about this hypocrisy, because I'm really appalled by it. You know, this idea that these folks live one life and then they try to dictate these mores and these values and these, on the rest of us that are completely inconsistent with how they themselves live.
Absolutely. A word that is tossed around a lot by that group is freedom, right? Parental rights, freedom. How about the freedom for us each to parent our child the way we see appropriate? Oftentimes, I'm not surprised by this scandal. I will tell you that often folks that are so hateful hate themselves. Hey, listen, I wish them well. You know what? Maybe you need to show up at like a PFLAG meeting and understand how you can love yourself and love your children. Many of the Moms for Liberty that show up at the school board meetings don't even have kids in the public school system. Listen, I'm not going to tell you how to parent your child. You don't want your child to take a book out of the library because you don't want to have to explain that families look all different and maybe there's two mommies and two daddies. You do you. But what you can't do, and what we are seeing, are these very extremist groups coming in and trying to make rules for all. There are private schools. If you don't want your child to be exposed to this, first of all, you can opt out and you can choose a school that fits and aligns with your family values. But public education is not the place to do it. We have leadership in this state that really don't deserve to have that role. If these were allegations, and I don't know about them, but if these are allegations, how do you get to be the top official looking over public education? Listen, parents should have the choice to be able to parent their child the way that they see fit. And that's the bottom line. It is not freedom for some. And, we're going to work on having a Florida where every family is treated with respect and every child is protected in schools. And we're not going to stop. I promise you, we will not stop fighting for our children's futures because they do deserve to live their lives without fear. This family, this child is no longer in school. She's at home and she is fearful of what her future looks like. Nobody has the right to out a child or anyone. And that's exactly what this state just did to a child.
As we'll talk about later in the show, the group is now known as Moms for Taking Liberties, Jennifer. And we'll be talking about that with Bob Norman coming up. And as I often say, parental rights, parental choice is I don't want my kid to read this book. Parental choice is not, I don't want anybody's kid to read any of these books. And we are now, the free state of Florida is the book banning capital of the United States of America. Not entirely surprising about that. Jennifer Solomon, Equality Florida, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's Mike, and I want to motivate you to make Miller Lite a part of your football watching experience. Here's the pitch. It's got only 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12-ounce serving. With a smooth taste and a crisp, clean finish, you get the taste that you crave without the calories. And, football fans, I can assure you, from personal experience, there is no other light beer, not on this wonderful planet of ours, that goes with football quite like Miller Lite. Make football time Miller time. No matter what team you're rooting for, there is one thing we can all agree on. Miller Lite and football bring us all together. So, I want you to take my advice and make it Miller time all season long. Get Miller Lite delivered right to your door. Visit MillerLite.com/Dan, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
42-year-old Alier Ojeda Salas He's being arrested for a handful of felonies after cops say he went to Shalom Montessori School and told the armed security guard, "I am Hamas," then pointed to a plastic bag that he was holding in his hand. The defendant went on to state it's C4, a known explosive. Police were promptly called. Students were then moved to a safe space, and a lockdown of the school was initiated. And the alleged crime is one of several instances of anti-Semitism reported in this general area.
Jewish people make up about 2.4% of the U.S. population, but are targets of about 60% of hate crimes linked to religion, according to the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray. According to the Anti-Defamation League, this week, there has been a 388% rise in anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. between October 7th and October 23rd over the year prior. Anti-Semitism was already on the rise, not only nationwide, but specifically here in the state of Florida, according to ADL's Hate in the Sunshine State report, where you've got incidents up as much as 50 to 80% here in the Sunshine State. And that report we just saw from WSVN and Sheldon Fox was about Miami Beach, which for a while was kind of a safe space for Jews, as was certain pockets of New York. David Samson, where you spend most of your time in Manhattan, I will start by asking you the same question I ask all of my Jewish friends, and in your case, frenemies, acquaintances, my Jewish acquaintances as well. How are you doing? And how is your family?
Thank you for asking. I'm not exactly sure you mean that with that introduction. Yeah, I'm okay. There is my son was in Israel and he was gone before October 7th, but he was working there this summer. And I was in Israel this summer as well and was gone by Labor Day. And I grew up in New York and spent time in Montreal and in Florida. And what is striking me right now is how many people are not okay, because it's not that they're not okay and they were okay. It's they're not okay and they can say they're not okay. And that's something that's really different, Billy, that not enough people are talking about, where it's almost a safe space to admit that you're not okay. And that's a pretty big difference when it comes to anti-Semitism.
Why are they not okay?
Well, I can give you example upon example of people I know on college campuses, both girls and boys, women and men, who don't feel safe, who are going through protests as they go to class, pro-Palestinian protests, anti-Semitic protests, people who go to temple, who I know on Friday nights and go through metal detectors and have to increase the budgets for security in a way they never had to before. While a big part of their budget was security, it's even bigger now because of the hate crime and the threats and the very things that you talk about on this show. So there's financial issues, there's mental health issues, and then there's just downright fear where wearing a Star of David is something that you don't want to do. And I understand that there are people for hundreds of years who have said that I don't feel safe going if I am a black person around police people, if I am an Islamic person or a Muslim around white people in America, wherever the case is. It just feels as though that the anti-Semitism, if these things were happening to other groups of people, there would be a bigger outrage than there is with what's happening to Jewish people.
I think you've made an interesting point, and I would say if it does certainly strike me that the world is reverting to its classic default, which is Jew hating. It's just an easy thing. It brings a lot of people together, right? Everybody except for Jews, who make up 0.2% of the Earth's population. But I do want to say you conflated something there, and it's controversial now. You referred to protests as being pro-Palestinian and anti-Semitic. I want to call back to that before we move ahead with this other, with obviously this rise in Jew hating in this country. But there is an ability to say, because obviously the rise in anti-Semitic incidents against Jews since October 7th is because of the heinous Hamas terrorist attacks on Israel on that date, the worst slaughter of Jews in history since the Holocaust. And obviously there has been a response from an Israeli government, which I don't know anybody who is a fan of, incidentally. Netanyahu, I believe, is a criminal who probably should have been in prison long before he was the prime minister of Israel again, but is now involved in a response that has been quite controversial in terms of human rights abuses and, of course, the deaths of many thousands of not just Hamas terrorists, but, of course, what they call in war collateral damage, which are innocent men, women, and children who are non-combatants, in no small part because you're dealing with an insidious enemy who effectively shields himself with those innocents. And of course, you have an Israeli army where morale is probably terrible because of their leadership, and who maybe don't want to go down into terror tunnels and fight hand to hand and put themselves at risk for who? For Netanyahu. So there's a lot of very complicated, what should I say, foreign policy implications, human rights implications here. And I don't want to be unsympathetic to people in Gaza who are the victims not only of the Israelis, but of their Arab and Muslim neighboring nations as well. Egypt could ease a lot of this pain by simply opening their borders for humanitarian purposes, which they refuse to do. But again, this kind of brings us back to the Jew hating. It's just easy to blame the Jews for this, isn't it?
Yeah, when I say I was just in Boston this past weekend, and there was right across the street diagonally from the hotel I was staying at, right in front of the public library, there was a big protest. And when I say pro-Palestinian, I'm talking about when people are protesting and they're saying as I'm walking by, not directly at me, I crossed the street and walked away from it, not going to engage. But when there are signs that are just simply death to Israel and Jews. So that is a whole different story than having a problem with the response or being pro-Palestinian, pro-peace, whatever you want to say. When you want to bring genocide to a group of people, and make no mistake, that is what Hamas wants to do to Jews around the world. Does it sound familiar? It does to me. They want to eliminate all the Jews. And the terrorist attack they did on October 7th was to eliminate the Jews. It was with reckless indifference toward civilians or men, women, and children. They were actually killing men, women, children, raping, etc. Responses are always difficult because when innocent people are involved, that becomes compounding a problem. However, when you want to eliminate Hamas, and we know for a fact that Hamas uses these Palestinians, these innocent people, you call them shields. I say when they're living in a townhouse and below the townhouse, Hamas is there holed up. What do? You try hand to hand. You try to give warning to get the people to get out of where there's going to be a problem. Where are they going to go? I understand those issues. What I'm really focused on right now is I absolutely understand everyone's point of view except those people who are calling for death to Israel, death to all Jews, and genocide to the Jewish state and the Jewish people. That I have no sympathy for, and I'm unwilling to engage in learning to have sympathy for that.
I'm not Israeli. I'm an American. I'm an American Jew. I have a little bit of trouble understanding what it is that we have done wrong, why fellow Americans would target fellow Americans, American Jews, for what it is that they seem to disagree with the response of the Israeli state. I really don't see another situation where we would ever do that, or where, and I think this goes to your point earlier.
Billy, that's not true. You know that. There's tons of people in our country who are marginalized. There are tons of people where war is brought to their door, and I don't mean official declarations of war. I mean racism. I mean violence. I mean senseless violence against groups of people, minorities. Part of me is not, oh, this is what it feels like, where I can have empathy, because there's been anti-Semitism my whole life that I've seen and been around. What you're saying, or maybe what I'm saying, is I don't understand, period, why you would have a view that a group of people, by the color of their skin or their religious beliefs, if they're letting you be you and you live your life and you practice your religion and you be free, I'm not sure I understand why genocide is the answer. And that goes for Jewish people doing genocide to anybody else, or anybody else doing genocide to Jewish people.
Well, I think we can fairly establish, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm anti-genocide.
So am I.
And I'm also against misusing words as well, whether it's racism, anti-Semitism, genocide. But you were getting at this earlier, and this is a struggle for me. I've been struggling with this emotionally, intellectually for a couple months now. And if you would replace what they're saying about Jews in Israel with any other race or group of people, I mean, you'd be canceled, and rightfully so, in an instant. I mean, from sea to shining sea, no black people for me. I mean, I'm not saying we need to kill all of them. I'm saying we don't want them here. We want them someplace else. It's a wait, what? No, none of that is okay. And I realize as I get older that a lot of my activism has been informed, if not inspired, by my Judaism. I don't think I knew that growing up, because culturally I just took my Judaism for granted. I'm not a particularly observant Jew or religious or spiritual person, but Judaism culturally is anti-genocide. Judaism culturally is for equality and civil rights and equal rights and acknowledging people and their rights, acknowledging Native Americans and their rights and what we took from them here, acknowledging Black Americans and what we took from them here, and being allies. And I'm finding that a lot of the organizations and individuals that I was allied with in my efforts against racism and for civil rights and equality and women's rights and bodily autonomy, I don't know, are legitimizing mass rape as a weapon of war. That's not my position. Legitimizing the whitewashing and rewriting of Jewish history as we have fought against that for Black history here in the state of Florida, coming and speaking out against an entire group of people based upon their religious beliefs. Again, like I was against the Muslim ban. That was the first act of the Trump presidency back in January of 2017. I'm just struggling a lot with this and thinking aloud, of course, because I don't really know where I'm going with this or what to make of this. But like, it's a bit of an identity crisis for me. By the way, I'm not on the opposite side of any of those things now as a result of this. I'm just profoundly confused.
So let's now go down, though, Billy, one level, which is what we talk about on a show with the microphone is our upset and how we're concerned and how we're not sure what to do. Put yourself in the shoes, if you can, of a leader, of a prime minister. Forget the fact that Netanyahu is a crook, which he is. Forget that he should be in jail, which he is. Yeah. The fact of the matter is he's now in charge of figuring out what to do. Put yourself in the shoes of the president of the United States, whether you agree or disagree with Trump, Biden, any of them. They don't have the luxury of sitting around every day in front of a microphone or with themselves or looking in the mirror and thinking about what to do. They have to act.
I think the president of the United States has made it clear that he would like to minimize the casualties of innocent civilians in Gaza. Part of the problem, of course, is that it's not just the Israelis. It's, as you said, the Hamas government is victimizing their own people, as they have for decades, obviously. So I want to bring it back around to this issue of what is with nobody. I haven't seen anybody attack Russian restaurants over what has happened in the Ukraine. In the United States, I mean. No one goes to, attacks Russian people on the streets for what
people were attacking Asian people during COVID.
Oh, God, we're so dumb. Why are we so dumb?
It's criminal. It is misinformed. It shows an absolute level of stupidity and ignorance that makes me sad as a country. But you sit and talk to Pablo, our person we all both work with, and ask him what it was like to be an Asian American during the time of COVID, or the massacre that took place at the massage parlors, as you may recall, and that was going on when all this was happening. We have a problem. And what works me up, and I'm maybe running out of time, but what I'm worked up about is that people view the solution to their problem and their ills in life. Their solution is, let's just eliminate them. Let's blame innocent people, kill them, and then we'll feel better about ourselves. And it absolutely has to stop. And the only way to stop, and now we're going to get way off the subject, how do you make this stop? With education and, dare I say, with gun control. Two things that we are lacking greatly in this society in America. Education is terrible, and so is gun control.
On that note, David Samson, stay safe. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Billy.
For all their contributions to society, the modern blue-collar worker remains undervalued, from the stereotypes they receive to the clunky work boots or stiff apparel designed by people who have never worked a trade job a day in their lives. That's why Brunt Workwear was created by workers for workers. Brunt is a brand transforming workwear. Brunt understands that when you're on the job, you need gear that can keep up with you. Blue-collar workers often require sturdy and durable work boots to protect their feet and provide comfort during long hours of labor-intensive work. That's why Brunt designed their boots and apparel with and for real workers to be durable, comfortable, and ready for anything. Workers like them are the backbone of this country, and they deserve better. Brunt makes the most comfortable and durable boots you'll ever try. You deserve high-quality gear at the best possible price. Try Brunt risk-free with a 30-day on-the-job trial and free shipping and returns. Use code GBF for $10 off your first order at bruntworkwear.com/GBF. That's BRUNT workwear.com/GBF.
The Falwells are the Southern Gatsbys. They're wealthy, powerful,
with Christian's communications empire,
and they're sloppy as
They have a public image, but behind the scenes, they're freaks. At the time, I didn't really know who they were.
My brother was at the age of one of their sons. He started being friendly with the kids.
They had no idea that their dad liked to record his wife getting in a room by a younger guy.
What is happening?
Bit of shameless self-promotion there. That was my documentary, God Forbid, the Sex Scandal That Brought Down a Dynasty, which 1 year ago this month became the most watched doc in Hulu history. It was about the cuckold threesome between a former pool boy at the famous Miami Beach hotel, the Fontainebleau, and Jerry Falwell Jr. and his wife, Becky, the president and first lady of Liberty University, the largest Christian university in the world. And now it looks like there'll be a Cuckold Cowboys 2 with a sensational headline last week from the Florida Center for Government Accountability and reporter Bob Norman. The headline is, Florida GOP chair Christian Ziegler, husband of Moms for Liberty co-founder, accused of sexual assault by alleged ménage à trois lover. The aristocrats. I mean, what a headline. And before we get into the more serious allegations here, Roy, what do you call that? Is it a bisexual cuckold threesome? What would you characterize this situation as?
Something that my wife doesn't want me to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. But should we ask permission first? But what you have here is Christian Ziegler, the chairman of the Florida Republican Party. His wife, Bridgette Ziegler, who is now an elected school board member in Sarasota and a co-founder of Moms for Liberty, a.k.a. Planned Parenthood, the hate group started in Florida that has spread like a cancer throughout the country, banning books, rewriting Black history, dehumanizing LGBTQ children, forcing them back into the closet. And here, apparently, she might be an alleged self-hating bisexual because she was involved in this threesome here, but now it has resulted in some very serious charges, as I said, broken by Bob Norman, who has been raking muck in South Florida for over a quarter century. He is the author of the book Florida Pulp Nonfiction, True Crime in the Sunshine State, and he's joining us here now. Bob, you broke this story, which has gone viral and international. I think mostly the interest here is the hypocrisy of very conservative right-wing politicians who are basically saying, do who we say, not who we do. What has been the reaction to the story?
The reaction's been huge, obviously, and it's because it is a big story that points to that hypocrisy. And that was one of the early things that I thought was, I guess the first thing was the hypocrisy. But as we get deeper into the facts of the case, now it's just sad and horrible. And the behavior is just so reprehensible. And it's not about allegations now. It's about facts that we have from the affidavit. We have police monitoring of Christian Ziegler's messages and phone calls. So we see exactly what he did. You know, we don't see it all, but we see the basic framework. When you look at the very beginning of this, it's October the 2nd. It's a Wednesday morning. It's 7:30 a.m. And Christian Ziegler is on Instagram Messenger, vanishing mode, which interestingly is how it's described that he liked to communicate, vanishing mode on Instagram. He's trying to convince this woman who what we know about her is that she's sliding into drug addiction, that she's drinking that day. She's a very troubled person. And he's trying to convince this woman to have a threesome with himself and Bridgette Ziegler, who we know is the co-founder of Moms for Liberty, Sarasota school board member.
And this has happened before, apparently, right?
Bridgette Ziegler herself, when speaking with police, admitted that more than a year ago, they had this sexual encounter between the three of them. So we don't know exactly what happened with that, but we don't. We're looking for more evidence, obviously, of everything.
But they've admitted to that is the point. That is now a fact of this case.
That is a fact of this case. It's 100% fact. That's what, and we're dealing with a lot of facts right now. And just to outline exactly what happened here on that day, he continues to hound her. At one point, he sends her a message saying, "Bridget and I are driving around. Give us your address. We'll come over right now." Her response is delayed. Sometime around 2:00, she gets back and says, "Okay." And this is all, again, documented messaging. And he says, "Oh, now it's just going to be me, not Bridget this time. She was ready at 1:30, but she's not. She can't do it now."
All right. So now it's not a threesome anymore. It is just him, the husband, and this woman, is what he's saying.
It's just at that point, it's just between the two of them, and she balks. She says, "No, I was mainly in it for her," she wrote.
Oof.
And that should have been the end of it.
So this woman indicates that she was mainly in it for the wife. She wanted to hook up with the wife, not him, per se.
That's what she said. And that's a no. That's a no to Christian Ziegler. It's don't come over.
I guess she's trying to be polite about it, but she's just not that into him. Right? I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, I guess so. And, again, that should have been the end of it. 12 minutes later, surveillance video from her apartment complex shows him pulling up in his truck, getting out. According to her, she opens the door to walk her dog, and he comes in and bends her over a piece of furniture, bar stool, and has sex with her against her will. And she said she was, at that point, so, out of it on tequila that she wouldn't have been in any sort of state to comply, or consent. He is claiming that it was consensual. The problem is we have it on record that she told him not to come over. So we have a lack of consent on record. And we also have something else that none of us have seen, but there is a video because Christian Ziegler, of course, videotaped what he did.
And then deleted it, though, right? I'm a little uncertain about these facts here. He claims he video recorded this encounter, which he says was consensual. She says was not. But then he deleted it, and then he recovered it, but the police don't have it yet. What is happening?
That kind of confusion is what it is.
Okay.
He did delete it, then he said he uploaded it. Who knows what that's about? But the police could not find it. That's one of the reasons they put in for the search warrant, which led to the affidavit that gives us all this wealth of information. And this isn't 100%, but I mean, I'm hearing from very good sources that they do have that video.
Okay.
So the police and prosecutors have that video.
Bob, what I want to play now is the reason why any of us know about this. Because to be clear, this alleged victim did not report this to police. In fact, there was a call to 911. I'd like to play that audio now.
911, what's the location of the emergency? I was hoping to do a wellness on a friend of mine. She hasn't shown up for work the past 2 days, and I just got off the phone with her, and she sounds drunk, and she told me that she doesn't think she can do it anymore.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
She won't talk to anyone else. She won't answer anyone else at work except for me. But she told me she was raped yesterday, and that she's scared to leave her house. She's slurring her words, and she's really not making sense. But she's saying she's scared that the person who raped her came to her house, and she's scared to leave. So
Okay.
I'm worried about her right now.
Okay, yeah, I have units en route.
To be clear, that was an edited version of a 7-minute long 911 call from a woman who identifies herself as a coworker of the alleged victim who's looking for a wellness check from the police in Sarasota, Florida, because this woman has not shown up to work. She spoke with her and she sounds inebriated. She has access to pills and she says, I can't do it anymore. And so this is what happens here, is that the police show up. She essentially repeats the rape allegation that she mentioned to the coworker, Bob, and now they take her for a rape kit test, now some days later, to the hospital. But in a way, and this is part of the tragedy of this situation, is this woman is kind of pulled into this somewhat unwittingly, right? I mean, like, now she's, going to be kind of a political hot potato in a situation that was not necessarily of her own choice or making here, right?
In a sense, yes. I mean, we don't know what her motivation is in terms of initially why she didn't make a complaint and then why she did. But it's clear from the affidavit that she's very cooperative in the investigation. She did controlled phone calls between herself and Christian Ziegler with police on the line after this happened. And that's where you find Christian Ziegler basically trying to get away from the subject, apologizing for what happened. At one point, when she says, you essentially raped me, he says, those are big words. And he says, no, you invited me in. And I mean, again, offering her help numerous times. And then at one point offering financial help, never admitting that, he did anything wrong other than making her feel pain, which he acknowledged. And he said he was sorry for that and didn't want that to happen. So I think that, when this case comes, what it's going to come down to is that video. It's going to be very important. I doubt it's going to be very good for Christian Ziegler. And I'm hearing that this is going to take another turn. And there's going to be some bizarre explanations for why this happened. I can't get into it. I'm not sure that I probably shouldn't even be saying that. But
well, Bob, in our last 30 seconds, I just want to ask, what are sort of the fates of these people politically? Ostensibly the leader of the Republican Party in the state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis, has asked for Christian Ziegler's resignation as the chairman of the Florida GOP. Another member of the Sarasota School Board has asked for Bridgette Ziegler's resignation. What is going to happen here politically to this power couple?
Christian Ziegler, is going to be very hard for him to continue, I think, and specifically for what DeSantis said, which was innocent or guilty. This is going to be a distraction. That's going to, this is an election year. This couldn't hit at a worse time. We're 100 days from the Florida primary. I think he's cooked. I think that we're yet to see, in terms of his position, I think that I don't see how you can keep that going. And in terms of Bridgette's role as a school board member, we're going to see a circus on December the 12th. That's the first Sarasota school board meeting. And she has been a disruptive force in that city for a long time, in that county. I'm actually, kind of looking forward to seeing how that goes down and see what her.
And
I think she'll probably survive this, but the hypocrisy on her side is just as bad, probably worse even than her husband's in some ways.
And she's been proactively attacking a fellow member of the school board who, for no other reason than him being gay. I mean, him being called.
It goes deeper than that. I think when you look at her, I think you look at her role in forming the Florida Parental Rights Act, better known as the Don't Say Gay bill. That's largely seen as anti-LGBTQ legislation. It basically legislates gayness out of, young grades, early grades in school. And she was integral in that, worked hand in hand with Governor DeSantis on that legislation. And if you look at what she's already admitted to, she's one of those letters in what she's against.
Yeah, LGBT. So, she is the B of the LGBTQ. At least one. Bob Norman, find him at flcga.org, the Florida Trident, Florida Center for Government Accountability. Thanks, Bob. Keep up the good work.
Same to you.
It's time once again here on Because Miami for Fear, Loathing, and Florida Men on the presidential campaign trail.
I was right in the middle of a reptile zoo. And somebody was giving booze to these goddamn things.
This fucking guy.
These are the top 5 reasons, Roy, why the DeSantis campaign is finally going down the toilet.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Finally.
I think it's coming to an end. We are circling... This turtle is circling the bowl right now.
Well,
that's BS. No, totally BS.
What if the toilet gets clogged? What are we going to do then?
It's going to overflow. All the shit's going to pour right out into Florida. That's what's going to happen.
It's already doing that.
That's it. That's our
Biscayne
default.
Bay.
That is our default. Number 5, Roy. Florida newspaper mocks Ron DeSantis' debate performance. That's right. Before this week's GOP, well, the final, I believe, GOP primary debate.
Thank God.
There was the now infamous debate between California Governor Gavin Newsom, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. And despite the fact that it was basically 2-on-1, but enough about Moms for Liberty, that you had Hannity basically providing training wheels, okay, and support for DeSantis. Newsom still whooped him, and the Miami Herald totally made fun of him for that. Here's one of the many just miserable slaps right across the face that Newsom delivered to DeSantis.
You and President Trump are really trying to light democracy on fire. So, Sean, there are profound differences tonight, and I look forward to engaging. But there's one thing in closing that we have in common is neither of us will be the nominee for our party in 2024.
Oof.
That hurt.
Number 4, DeSantis' favorite media blog fires staff expected to shut down before Christmas-ca. That's right. Ron DeSantis is very big on sort of like state media. He doesn't trust the media, as you know, Roy, because we can't be trusted.
Right.
But he has basically helped through his donor network to start all of these pro-DeSantis media outlets and blogs. And one of them is shutting down, has laid everybody off. It's called the Florida Standard. And they fired all of its employees and will shutter its doors just in time for Christmas. And more importantly, before Florida's presidential primary election, which at this point, it looks like even DeSantis is going to lose his own state primary. It's like super sad, bro. This fucking guy. Number 3, Koch Network endorses
That's right.
Yes. So Mike Fuentes has been in my ear going, Koch Network, Koch Network, Koch Network. And I'm like, that's not what it is. It's Koch. This is Miami. We know it's Koch Network. We know it's the Koch brothers. And I said it, and I was worried with him in my ear, I was going to say it wrong, but I got it right. It is the Koch Network. They endorsed Nikki Haley, which is seriously problematic for Meatball Ron because these are billionaires. They've already raised about $70 million in this election cycle. Charles Koch himself, his net worth is like $50 billion. And they have serious ground game in the early primary states, New Hampshire and Iowa. And so this is going to go a long way for Nikki Haley. And it is really, really bad news for Ron DeSantis.
Do you honestly believe that's credible?
Number 2. Chris Ziegler bucks Ron DeSantis' call to resign as Florida GOP chair. We talked about this earlier in the show, Roy, with Bob Norman about this bisexual cuckold threesome that involves Chris Ziegler and his wife from Moms for Taking Liberties, Bridgette Ziegler. Here's the thing. The governor of the state of Florida, really the governor of any state, is the leader of their own state party. So when Ron DeSantis is the de facto leader of the Florida Republicans says the GOP chair for the state needs to resign, you better believe he's going to resign. And Chris Ziegler said, go pound sand, and has refused to resign, says the rape allegations against him are false, and, do what you're going to do. And now they're calling a special meeting later this month to try to remove him. But right now, what he's not saying is this.
You're goddamn right, Meatball.
He's not saying that. He's saying
goddamn wrong, Meatball.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying. Get Greg Cody in here and let's re-record that cart. But that's quite a blow to a guy that's supposed to be the leader of the party in the state, and your own chairman is basically saying, you're not the boss of me. You have no control over this party. It's like, wait, what? Irregardless, as we say in Miami, because we're illiterate. I use it ironically, though. Number 1, DeSantis finishes 99-county Iowa slog farther behind Trump than when he started. This is brutal. And this is hand in hand with the fact that Nikki Haley has surged into second place in the Iowa poll. This is just brutal. Ron DeSantis finished what they call the full Grassy. He went to all 99 counties in Iowa. And the more people meet him and see him and get to hear directly from him, the less they like him. When Ron DeSantis first announced in May that he was going to run for president in the GOP primary against former President Donald Trump, he was only behind Trump, Roy, by about 12 points in the polls.
Still a lot.
Today, now that he's completed a tour of the entire state of Iowa, DeSantis is 30 points behind Trump in the polls.
A lot more.
To know him is to
hate him.
Not vote for him, apparently, is the case. Roy, it's been a banner week back here. I want to congratulate Damian Pardo, the new Miami City Commissioner for District 2, who beat the incumbent Sabina Kovo, who we talked about quite a bit on this program. This is a rare victory lap, I guess, for us in an election cycle here. And Damian Pardo is now the first out gay commissioner in the history of the city of Miami. Also, congratulations to Miguel Gabella, who beat Alex Diaz-Laportilla, your boy, Roy. Yes, the criminally charged and removed from office Alex Diaz-Laportilla, who got 46% of the vote, by the way, but not enough to win it. Congratulations to Mike Gabella, the new commissioner for the city of Miami District 1. Also, rest in power to TV pioneer and civil rights activist Norman Lear. Made an extraordinary contribution to television, to pop culture. And to leave you today with a Miami moment, it is, as you know, Roy, Fitness Friday.
Oh, no.
In WAD we trust, bro. So here to walk you through our workout of the day is none other than Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. Cocaine's.
Hey guys, Fitness Friday today. I have a little back thing, so Ozzy designed a workout today to sort of compensate for it. So today, I want to sort of highlight the fact that even if you're not feeling well, maybe a little sick, maybe you have a pain, it doesn't mean you shouldn't work out or shouldn't move. That just means you should tailor your workout around whatever it is that you're feeling. So I got it in. It was 6 rounds. The first round was wall balls. I started at 10 pounds light, went up to 14. The second round is dumbbell slides. So you started on one side on a plank, and then you move it to the other side, you're planking. And then the idea, as Ozzy told me throughout the workout, is try not to rock your hips and keep your hips up at a plane. So that works out your core, your stability, everything. And then the wall balls just sort of works the full body workout, your shoulders, your legs, your cardio, everything. So be intense in those 20 seconds. You have 40 seconds off, so you have plenty of time to rest. Intense in the 20 seconds, 40 seconds off for 12 whole minutes.
Hey, it's Mike, and I want to motivate you to make Miller Lite a part of your football watching experience. Here's the pitch. It's got only 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12-ounce serving. With a smooth taste and a crisp, clean finish, you get the taste that you crave without the calories. And, football fans, I can assure you, from personal experience, there is no other light beer, not on this wonderful planet of ours, that goes with football quite like Miller Lite. Make football time Miller time. No matter what team you're rooting for, there is one thing we can all agree on. Miller Lite and football bring us all together. So, I want you to take my advice and make it Miller time all season long. Get Miller Lite delivered right to your door. Visit MillerLite.com/Dan, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.